Briefcase Crimes contains graphic descriptions of violent events, loud dog noises, and very bad jokes, and is not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome, listeners, to Briefcase Crimes.
I'm Hannah, and I'm full of terrifying facts about horrific events.
I'm Liz, and I'm full of morbid curiosity. Hannah.
Elizabeth.
Welcome to our third monthly mystery.
I'm thrilled.
So today, I've done like something totally different every single time so far. We had a cryptid.
What's the point of this?
I know, right? First we had a cryptid, then we had just like a wacky how did this happen? I don't even know what to call it. And this time it's going to be a murder mystery.
Which is so on brand for us.
I know, right? I figured I wanted to do it. It looked like a good case. And it's unsolved. So, because I think most of what we talk about usually is solved.
I was going to say, I steer clear of unsolved ones because I don't find them satisfying.
I know. This is going to be so not satisfying for you.
That's okay, though, because if I'm going into it, to hear a story about true crime, I want to know what happened, who did it, all of that. If I'm going into this to hear a mystery.
Right.
And I love unsolved mysteries.
Something I like about this case, not that I like what happened, don't get me wrong, but something I like about this is there are a lot of theories. Like, there's so many different theories, and some of them are so stupid. Like, I'm like, really? No, I don't think so. But
there's always stupid ones.
Yeah. So, let's get into it. This is the story of Evelyn Hartley.
Okay.
So, Evelyn Hartley was a junior at Central High School in La Crosse County, Wisconsin. She was a straight-A student. She was involved in lots of extracurriculars. She also played the piano and sang in the choir at her church. And she did not date boys. Like, she's 15 years old. She was straight-laced, school-focused.
Okay. It sounded like she doesn't have a lot of time to date boys anyway.
Right. She's doing all this stuff going on. Right? She's the youngest of 4 children. And it's not really relevant, but before this happened, one of her older brothers had passed away of polio whilst in the military. Not really relevant, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So
died of non-military things.
In the military. As like a 22-year-old adult. I thought that was kind of interesting. But it is neither here nor there. So go ahead to your first slide. We just have some pictures of Evelyn here.
Oh.
She's very cute.
She's very cute. I like her little hair.
Yes. So it is October 24th in 1953.
Okay.
It's homecoming night for La Crosse State College, which is like right smack dab in the middle of the city there. I didn't look, because I know the college still exists by a different name. I didn't look at like how big it was, but looking at it on a map, I got the feeling that it's kind of like a Clarion situation.
That's what I was going to say.
Where it's like just a little town and the college is like right there in the, on the edge of it, kind of. And we do have a map we'll look at later. I love maps.
Boy.
I know.
I love a map.
I know. So it's homecoming night, and Professor Viggo Rossmann I forget what he taught. It doesn't matter. I meant to look it up because there's several professors in this story. I don't remember what he teaches, but he's a professor at the college there. He has a 20-month-old daughter, but he, his wife, and his 6-year-old daughter are planning on going to the homecoming game, so they need a babysitter for their...
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
That you might not know the answer to?
Sure.
Is he Scandinavian?
I don't know. I do know that he had only lived in La Crosse for 3 months at this point. But I don't know where he moved from.
I bet you he's a Scandi.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure of
Okay.
it. So he hires 15-year-old Evelyn Evie Hartley.
Did he go to the high school?
No.
And just start asking around?
No. What happened actually was that Evie's mother made the arrangement, which Vigo and Evie's dad are both professors at the college. So this isn't substantiated anywhere, but my theory is that they were like talking at work and was like, oh, I need a babysitter. And they were like,
oh, maybe my daughter can do it.
Yeah, that's my assumption.
She's very straight-laced.
Right. Because their usual babysitter, who was in the same class as Evie, was also... One thing said she was also going to the homecoming game, and other things just said she had plans. So their usual babysitter, who was in Evie's class also, and whose dad was also a professor, all three of their dads were professors, couldn't do it that night. So Evie's mother was like, Evie will do it. I'm guessing that they were all familiar, like the dads. But again, that's just my own guesswork.
Probably.
But Evie and the normal babysitter, Janice, were in class together, so they definitely knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
According to one of the articles in the La Crosse Tribune, of which there were so many, this case was massive. There were so many articles about this case. But in one of them, it was reported that Evie told her mom she did not want to babysit that night, but that she had been volunteering earlier in the day. Didn't say where she was volunteering, but she just wanted to like stay home and study and not babysit a child. And her mom was like, well, I already made the arrangements. You have to do it.
Moms.
Yeah. So at 6:30 p.m., Professor Rossman picked Evie up at her home and brought her to his house to babysit. The Rossmans, so mom, dad, and 7-year-old, left home at 6:45.
Okay.
So, despite the fact that Evie's mom forced her to do this, her mom said she started to get a really uneasy feeling starting at about 7 p.m.
Moms.
I know. Evie had been instructed by the family to put the baby to bed at 7 p.m. and then at 7:15 cover the baby with a blanket, which I can only assume is like cover her once she's already asleep, like she won't fall asleep if she's covered. I don't really know.
So a 20-month-old is like a toddler.
Yeah.
And I know that like putting babies that are that age to sleep is like a freaking nightmare.
Yeah.
So maybe it was like, if you cover her up, she's not going to stay covered up.
Right. Something like that. But they had given her these instructions, put the baby to bed at 7, cover the baby at 7:15. Evie had brought several school books with her to study. And what was normal for her whenever she babysat, because she did regularly babysit, but just not for this family. What was normal for them was that she would call home at 8:30 just to check in with her parents.
Yeah. Man, I've babysat. That's like, once the baby or the child is asleep, that's just like, you gotta do something to kill time.
Well, yeah, and like the family left at 6:45 and told her to put the baby to sleep in 15 minutes. Like, she just got there.
Yeah.
You know? So she, like I said, 8:30 came and went. Her parents received no phone call. Her dad tried calling the house several times. Nobody answered. And eventually, shortly after 9 p.m., he decided that he was going to go over there and see what was going on, because this was very unusual. He knocked on both the front and the side door and got no answer. He rang the bells. No answer. All the doors were locked. But he was able to look in the living room window, and he saw one of Evie's shoes and her glasses on the floor.
Oh.
So he walked around the house looking for anything, any way to get in, anything looks suspicious. And he found that the basement window was open. So he entered the home through the basement window. He noticed there was a step stool placed by the window on the inside. So the family had been painting or something, and so the stool was out in the basement already, but they must have moved it to the window.
Okay.
And then he saw Evie's other shoe at the top of the basement stairs. So he goes upstairs to find that the living room is disheveled, like the furniture has been moved haphazardly, and that all of her books were just strewn about the floor. So there was some kind of struggle. Yeah. And her one shoe was there with her glasses, and her glasses were broken.
Yikes.
Yeah. So he then checked on the baby, because obviously, what do you do next?
Yeah.
Baby is totally fine, sound asleep.
No blanket.
No blanket. So a neighbor noticed that there was like a guy walking outside and came over to see what was up.
Yeah.
And Evie's dad explained what was going on, and it seemed like he stayed with the dad for a little while. I don't know if that was because they were like looking for her or what the story was, but the neighbor stayed there for maybe like 8 to 10 minutes before going back to his house and calling the police from across the street. I don't know why he had to go home to call the police. Like, I don't know why they didn't just use the phone there. Nothing was wrong with the phone.
It's a crime scene now. I don't know.
I guess.
I think it's kind of like, he saw when her dad was wandering around, but not when whoever got in the basement and took her.
Right.
I'm developing my own theories.
That's fine. So, the police come in minutes. Small town. Nothing to do on homecoming night.
That's weird, because there's normally some sort of crime happening on homecoming night.
I know. So, my next section of this outline is just labeled the facts. Because...
Dang, Nancy Grace.
I know. It's a mystery, right?
Yeah.
So there are certain things that we know for a fact happened, and everything else from this point, after I get over the facts, everything else is speculation.
Okay.
So, we don't even have one side of the story, because we have no criminal.
Yeah. See why I don't do unsolved ones?
I know.
What else am I supposed to tell you?
Exactly. And I'm worried this is going to be a little short, too, so...
Yeah, it's a monthly mystery. They can be a little short.
Yeah. The first fact I have is that at least 3 of the windows had marks on them that showed someone tried to pry them open. There were also marks on other houses in the neighborhood. There were shoe prints, and a size 11 men's shoe print, both in the home and outside the basement window, with very distinct sole markings. Nothing was taken from the home, except Evie. Like, this wasn't a robbery. Nothing of value was taken. There was blood. In the living room, on the side of the home... Actually, hold on. I forgot about our slides. Go to your next slide really quick. So, the top right photo is the living room with her shoe and her glasses. And then this is a little newspaper clipping with a picture of the home. So, of note, there was like a carport, but no garage on the far side of the home. So it would be really easy to say, like, oh, there's no car parked. The house is empty.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of reference there. Let me go back to where the blood was. So there was blood on the side of the house. There was a little bit of blood on the inside of the window in the basement and on the outside of the window. This puddle had a human hair in it that was not Evie's. They never say who it could have been. On the side of one of the neighbors' garages, there was also some blood. as well as in a basement window well next door to that house. So, if you go to the next slide.
Did you say the professor who owned this house?
Mm-hmm.
What's his last name?
His name is Rasmussen.
Okay. That's what it said here, and I was like, I didn't remember if you said Rossman or Rasmussen.
Yes, Rasmussen. So this is a little bit of an aerial photo and then a drawing. The police had bloodhounds come in to like try to follow her scent, and the arrows here are the path that the bloodhound sniffed out until they got to the road, at which point the dogs they had them do this a few times. The dogs always lost the scent right there. So the police are saying that a car took her at that point.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so then you can see where they went like through the backyard, and the nosy neighbor who came over was from across the street.
So not in this picture?
Right. So that neighbor, it would have been, so the picture on the left, it would have been farther left.
To the left, yeah.
Right.
It would have been opposite their front door.
Right. So it's possible most of this stuff happened like in the back. So it's possible that they just didn't see, In that little photo, it shows you kind of mapped out where the blood stains were also.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of get an idea of that.
Downer house.
Yeah.
It's like house, downer house. I wonder, this looks like it's like new development, which was a big thing in the 50s as well.
Possibly.
So because like you can see, it looks like it's been like recently developed. Plus these houses all kind of look similar.
Similar, right.
So I wonder if the house, downer house, if the houses that don't have names to them were unoccupied.
Maybe. Nothing says anything. Nothing said anything about that.
Interesting.
So, now, Evie's parents were at the scene. Like, obviously her dad was already there, but Evie's mother came as well at some point. And Evie's mother was quoted as saying that as soon as she saw the blood by the window well, she knew her daughter was dead.
Oh my.
But law enforcement says the amount of blood that was around the scene, while it sounds like there's a lot, was not a fatal amount of blood. Like that it was probably that she got hit in the face and got a nosebleed.
Well, you could call that a mother's intuition, though.
Oh, absolutely. Because, I mean, she
already
had that sinking feeling.
Well, my thought was, because there was blood, like, on all these houses, and hair, I wondered do we know whose blood it was?
The blood was hers. So, and this was just, at the time, they only just tested by, like, type.
Blood type,
so her blood type was type A. All of this blood was type A blood.
Okay, so, I mean, what are the odds that the perpetrator also had type A blood?
Right.
But we'll assume it's hers.
Right. So then, of course, at this point, people are kind of starting to come forward with information. So a different neighbor reported hearing screaming at 7:15. Now, this is a little bit contradictory. In one report, I read that, unless there's two different neighbors, I'm not sure, because a lot of the stuff isn't super well documented. One report said that she just thought it was kids playing, but in another report, she said that she thought it was a kid being disciplined because the screaming was like, no, get away from me, stop. And she thought nothing of it and didn't call the police.
Man, neighbors.
Sometimes great, sometimes not. Another neighbor who was referenced a few times, and he was kept anonymous, like they just called him Mr. X for like decades.
Okay.
Reported seeing a Buick circling the block several times that they didn't recognize as being like a neighborhood vehicle. And then they also saw two men and one woman between them, like they were flanking her, like walking. And he said it looked like the woman was drunk, like they were assisting her. Then he said he saw that same suspicious vehicle again later with one man in the front, and then one man and one woman in the back, with the woman leaning forward against the front seat, and he presumed it was the same 3 people he had seen walking.
Okay.
So, that guy eventually did come out and stop being anonymous, but not for like a long time afterward. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's so suspicious that he didn't want to be identified. And it's like, or he didn't want people to like knock on his door and ask him weird questions and stuff.
Or the guys who drove the Buick to be like, because it can't be hard to be like, oh, hey, do you know, especially in the 50s,
yeah,
do you know where Mr. X lives?
Right, exactly.
Oh, yeah, he's right over there. And then it's like, we'll keep you from ever saying anything that you know.
Exactly. So, something else of interest is that the same footprint was found in other people's yards in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kind of leans towards, like, they were canvassing the neighborhood. There was also a peeping Tom who had apparently been active in the neighborhood for like a year. Like, I guess they just couldn't catch this guy.
Okay.
Something that I thought was kind of suspicious, but I guess like crimes in the 50s, man, what are you gonna do? The family was allowed back in their home that same night. So they did say that the areas that were evidence, so like the living room and the basement, were preserved, quote unquote, but they were allowed in their home to like sleep and stuff.
Yeah, and like, I mean, this is a college town in Wisconsin, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like New York City.
Right.
Like, these cops probably don't deal with like abductions or homicides.
Oh, definitely not. Because like the response, oh no, you wouldn't see this like ever anywhere.
Okay.
They searched for her until about 1 a.m. before calling it off for the night. And then, of course, they brought in the bloodhounds and stuff, like I mentioned before. So, in the following days, they got just, like, enormous response of people wanting to help search for her. The National Guard helped to search for her. Even, like, the Boy Scouts helped to search for her.
No.
Yeah, I know. Of course, they never found her. However, some things that they did find in the days after her disappearance was a pair of underwear and a bra that, quote, could have been Evie's and were soaked in blood. And I'm like, what do you mean could have been? Like, couldn't her mom, like, identify them as hers or not? Like, I don't...
That's true.
I don't understand that. But
well, maybe it was like it was just like a white maiden form bra or something.
Maybe.
That, like, everybody has.
Maybe. But they found a bra and a pair of underwear that were soaked in blood 2 miles south of La Crosse. And then on the same road, but 4 miles farther south, they found a blood-stained pair of men's pants. And the pants, they were very much, like, not known if they were related to the crime or not.
Did they test the blood for, like, type?
For some reason, I can't find anything about them testing the blood on those objects. I really don't know why.
Because here's the thing. Either it is related,
mm-hmm.
or it's not, and that's also upsetting.
Yeah. Exactly. So I don't know why, because they tested blood in so many other situations. I don't understand why that was left in question. A few days later, they then find a pair of size 11 sneakers.
Hey.
In the Coon Valley area, which is southeast of La Crosse. They know that they were only there for a short amount of time before they were found because they had searched that area and not found them. So they had been placed there on the day that they were found. So somebody dumped them.
Ooh, oh, okay.
Inside the shoes, they found another human hair, which it's noted that they think it, quote, could have been an African American hair. Mm-hmm. And that's, like, all the evidence they have, pretty much. Like, they didn't test the DNA. It was, like, not a thing, I guess.
Well, no, they definitely didn't have DNA in
No.
the 50s.
They,
but I was gonna ask. You might not know the answer.
yeah.
Did they preserve this stuff?
I don't.
So, like, could they do it now?
I don't know. So, I know that some of it was not preserved, which I'll explain why later, because it's like, oh my god, they would never do that today.
You'd be surprised. I'll let you know what they'll do today.
Yeah, but no, there was nothing about whether or not it was preserved. I like almost wanted to call the police department, but I was like, no, Liz, don't be crazy. Don't do that. But there was a bloody handprint, and I guess they tried to examine it for like prints, but it was too smudged. So they, like, I swear to God, did more forensics on this pair of shoes than literally anything else. Okay? The soles had a pattern on them which matched the pattern left at the scene.
Okay.
They also had a distinct wear pattern on them which suggested that the owner both worked with machinery. I don't know what about them would say he works with machinery, but that's a thing. They also had a distinct mark on them that evidenced that the wearer rode a Whizzer motorbike.
Okay.
And then this is the most far out. Like, I have no idea how you would determine this. Law enforcement also determined that 2 different people wore those shoes, but that one of the wearer's feet were too large for them.
I don't know. I know that you can tell, like, on my shoes that I wore before I got shoes to correct it with running. You could tell, like, if I pronated or anything like that, like the way my feet hit the ground.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like there's wear on it in one way that shows this, there's wear on another that shows this, and because they're too big, it's hitting the ground in such a way. Like,
I guess.
there are people that this is what they study.
I guess so. I was, like, amazed. I was like, you could tell all of that from a pair of sneakers. Okay.
But you can't tell me anything else about the crime.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I was like, this just doesn't make any sense to me. I was like, there's so much detail in this one thing.
Yeah.
But whatever. Within 800 feet of the shoes, they also located a very worn denim jacket with blood stains on the front. And the blood on this jacket was also Evie's blood type.
Okay.
So go to your next slide.
Ooh.
So these are the shoes.
Are they Chuck Taylors?
No. So they're like made by the Michelin Rubber Company, which something that's kind of interesting is once they had the shoes, they were able to contact the Michelin Rubber Company, and the Michelin Rubber Company was able to say, hey, we only sell those shoes in these 4 states.
Nice.
And so the police tried to check like shoe sales and like follow that trail, but it led nowhere, which doesn't surprise me because that's like, they're clearly so old.
Yeah.
Like, they've really been worn. So there's the shoes. On the top left, on the bottom is the footprint that was left outside the window. And then for comparison is the soles of the shoes to the right. And then in the middle on the top is a Whizzer motorbike. So I guess basically, like, you use your heel to do something. Yeah. I don't know. I don't ride motorbikes.
So like kick start it.
Yeah, and they could tell there was like a little round worn in spot that matched the motorbike. So that's where they got that from. So then they also tried to look into motorbike sales, and that didn't lead anywhere either. And then on the right is a photo from a newspaper with both the jacket and the shoes, because something that they did was they were showing these things to like everybody, just hoping that somebody would identify.
Yeah, that's my uncle's jacket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So back to the jacket. The jacket had wear marks under the armpits and across the back that looked to be caused by a safety harness being frequently worn with it. So law enforcement believed that the owner of the jacket was a steeplejack, which, if you don't know, is basically someone who is frequently on like scaffoldings or climbing buildings to do maintenance on the outside of them.
Okay.
So they just had like these wear marks that made them think, oh, they wear a harness. Obviously, the only option is steeplejack.
Yeah, or like they're a skydiver.
Yeah, obviously they skydive exclusively in their cropped waist denim jacket. Anyways. So, Evelyn's kidnapping caused one of the largest searches for a missing person in Wisconsin's history. Okay. Like I said, the Boy Scouts came out to help. The National Guard came out to help. Everything came up empty. Also, let me give you some geographic input. If you go to your next slide, I have made us this little map here. So, and it's labeled. So on the top dot is where the home is. And then I've included that little drawn map on the right for some more perspective. And you can see the college is just north of it, like 2 miles north. And then I've marked the location of the blood-stained underwear and bra, as well as the location of the denim jacket and sneakers. They didn't give like with the underwear, like it literally said this overpass. Like it's a very distinct, yeah, seriously. But it didn't give me a real precise location for the jacket and the shoes. So I just put a little arrow to point to the town that they were found in.
I'm surprised that they didn't, or maybe they did, invite the FBI because of them being so close to Minnesota.
You know what? There was not a single word about the FBI in all the research I did.
Maybe they didn't have enough evidence to say that they went to Minnesota.
Maybe.
But it's just so darn close.
Yeah. On October 27th, so just days after, Mr. Hartley made a public plea for his daughter's return, you know, how they do on the news and what have you.
Yeah.
People were also skeptical and suspicious of him. So he requested and took a lie detector pass to eliminate himself, which he passed.
Okay.
So I don't feel super great about lie detector tests. I think there is a reason they're not admissible in court in all 50 states. I just have feelings about lie detectors. Like, they're too easy to trick.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying I do think it was him, but I'm just saying there's a lot of lie detectors in this case, and I think it's kind of silly. And you don't feel like
it proves a lot?
No, I don't.
Okay.
In May of the following year, the police attempted to conduct mass lie detecting. They tried to test 1,750 students and faculty from Evelyn's high school. This was controversial at best.
Yeah, how can that be legal?
And they managed to test 300 individuals before having to stop. They especially wanted to interview all of the boys at her school. Mm-hmm. So it came up with nothing. They tested 300 people and got nothing from it.
Okay. Well, nothing ventured and all that.
Yeah. If you look at all of the newspaper clippings, because there's so many stories in the paper about this, there are tons of other clues that just led nowhere. There was people who tried to call in fake tips to collect rewards, as you'll have, you know. One of my honorable mention newspaper clips was one that said that the police may try to dig up a car, like they thought that the car was buried somewhere.
Stanley Haas.
I know, but I don't think that they ever did it. Or if they did, they came up with nothing because it was never mentioned again.
Okay.
But, like, they kept getting these, like, little clues here and there, and everything just came up empty-handed.
Darn.
Yeah. So, that takes us to the theories.
Okay.
The first theory is that she ran away to be with a secret boyfriend.
I don't believe that.
Not with the amount of blood. I think she would have taken her shoes with her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or her glasses.
Yeah. Especially if, like, I don't know. Why fake a kidnapping?
Yeah.
And I also don't think that she would leave the baby.
No, I don't think so either. Because she was, by all accounts, an extremely responsible teenager. So
Yeah,
I don't think she would have included an innocent toddler in what she was doing.
Yeah. She would have at least covered the baby up first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was like crazy because they're like, oh, she didn't cover the baby. That means it happened in this 15-minute window.
Yeah.
Which also means like they saw the car circling and they were just like waiting for the family to leave.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Yeah. So,
I mean, we just watched Home Alone last night.
yeah.
So I'm thinking about like them casing the joint and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the theories was that they had spotted her, like they were casing the neighborhood, but that they saw her through the window and was like, this is it. Like they saw her through the living room window.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously there was evidence that the neighborhood was being cased. Like,
yeah.
They also think it could have been the peeping Tom thinking this is my window of opportunity.
My literal window.
Literally. Some people thought that she had been being stalked, but it seems unlikely considering that this was the first time she had ever babysat for the family, and she didn't walk there. She lived only a few blocks away, but she got a ride from the father, so, like, unless they just saw her walking in the house from the car, like, that seems really unlikely to me.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the robbery gone wrong, which is like classic theory, but nothing was stolen. Like, don't you think they would have taken something?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I was thinking maybe they were casing the place, like different places.
Mm-hmm.
They broke into the Rasmussen house thinking, I'll rob the place. And then, oh, there's a girl here. I have to take care of her because now she's seen me.
Right.
And now I don't have time to take care. Or, hey, there's a girl here. I'll make that my crime instead.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I could see that.
Yeah. I just feel like if it was a robbery, I don't know. It's one of those things where they had to have been very inspired to take her. Because I think with a standard robbery, you don't try to pry open multiple windows. Like, you just see what the easiest way in is and you take it. Like, I don't think your typical robber would go to the effort. I think they'd move on to the next house. You know what I mean?
Maybe. But maybe they thought this is a professor.
Maybe.
Or they had a nice car or something.
Maybe.
And it was like, this is going to be worth it.
One of the biggest theories was that it was the regular babysitter's dad.
Oh.
Which there's not really any evidence.
Yeah,
but
where does that come in?
the logic comes from the fact that few people would have known that Evelyn was babysitting and that she was going to be there. But Janice's dad likely would have, because Janice is the typical babysitter and he's also a professor at the college. So he was likely privy to the knowledge. He was probably one of the only other people who knew that she was going to be there, because she didn't even know she was going to be there until she got home from volunteering.
I don't believe that.
So the thing that gets people real worked up about that one is because decades later he committed suicide. And so the theory is that he was like riddled with guilt.
Or maybe he was riddled with harassment of people thinking he killed a 15-year-old girl.
Maybe.
Or maybe he was just depressed.
Yeah.
Suicide doesn't mean necessarily you're guilty of a crime.
Right. And I mean, if you look at the like actual statistics and research, people with mental illness are less likely to commit those types of crimes. So
I think that the evidence, including the denim jacket and sneakers and Whizzer motorbike, point away from involvement of anyone who is a professor at a college.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the craziest theories is, you're not going to believe this.
An owl.
No, worse. One of the other theories is that it was Ed Gain. Because on that very night, Edward Theodore Gain was visiting relatives in La Crosse, just blocks away from where Evelyn was babysitting that night.
I mean...
Now, I don't know much about Ed Gain, but from what I read, people said that it was not his MO, at all.
Yeah, it's not. And this would be very strange for him to just, like, I'm going to change it up, because he was not the kind of guy who just changed it up.
And I'm not sure when his crimes took place. Like, I don't know. Because sometimes, like, a serial killer's first crime is way different,
Yeah. I mean, you get that a lot with stuff, though. Like, another Wisconsin criminal, Jeffrey Dahmer. There are people who think that he killed Adam Walsh in Florida. Like, there's a lot of that, like, well, maybe because of this. But, I mean, maybe, but that's quite a coincidence.
It's such a huge coincidence. Like, can you freaking believe?
Yeah, like,
he would just happen to be in town.
One of the most, like, wild serial killers in our nation's history just happened to also be there.
Right. I was like, Hannah's gonna lose it. I didn't pick that. I did not pick this case for that fact. But when I stumbled on it, I was like, you've got to be kidding.
I mean, he was there, but still, I don't know.
So what?
Again, it's the jacket and the sneakers that are throwing me off of all of these theories.
Yeah. Ed Gain denied any involvement and also passed a lie detector test about it.
And also, it admitted to everything else, so why would he lie about this?
Right. Exactly. The other theory we talked about, that it was her own dad.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's really none of the stuff that I read really, like, got into the personal life. It's not like with, for example, the JonBenet Ramsey case where, like, everything about the family. Like, I don't know anything about the parents. I have a hard time believing that he would be involved, especially since they had already lost a child.
But
like,
if
I
he
don't
did
know.
it, here's my thing. If he did that, if he went and killed his own child, why then go at 8:30 and get police involved and all that?
Well, a lot of people question the timeline because there's timestamps on a lot of it. Like, he arrived at the house at this time and it took him this long for them to call the police. But I think that it looks like a reasonable timeline. Because it's like, he arrived at the house and it took him like 19 minutes to call the police. But it's like, he had to get in the house and then he had to deal with the neighbor who came over and checking on the baby, toddler, and like all this stuff. Like, I'm not really surprised.
19 minutes isn't a long time.
It's really not a long time. So some people think that the timeline is questionable, though, so they think it's him.
Maybe people think that when he got there and he saw that her shoe was in the living room, he should have called 911. But, like, she could have fallen down the stairs. Well, go next door. I don't know. Yeah. Is there a theory that the neighbor did it?
No.
I think the neighbor did it.
Yeah, the neighbor's literally never mentioned again.
I think the neighbor did it.
Yeah.
Put me on record. I think the across the street neighbor did it.
The other theory is that it was planned and organized, because you got like the getaway car, and at least 2 men supposedly involved. A lot of people think that it was organized, but that it wasn't supposed to be Evelyn. It was supposed to be Janice, the regular babysitter.
I don't believe that either.
No?
No, here's what I think. I have 2 theories.
I can't wait to tell you the last one. The last one's my favorite theory.
Okay, well, here are my theories.
Okay.
I think either the neighbor across the street did it.
Okay.
And the reason that I think that is because he didn't notice creeps creeping around, casing the joint, and all of that. Which, if you notice, the bloodhounds start at the front door.
Yeah.
Like, I think they were all the way around this house. He didn't notice that, but he noticed her dad.
So there's a detail about that that's a little bit confusing too. Some of the experts think that they like took her out the basement window because there's blood there. But then some people think they took her out the front door.
My thought was, why wouldn't you?
And the front door is like it's like a self-locking door. So yeah, the door still would have been locked. But then I'm like, how does that explain the blood by the window? Unless just like all the other places that there were blood, they just like set her down to take a rest and she bled, you know?
That's what I think. Because I think, okay, you found entry through the window. Mm-hmm. Why are you then going to drag a 15-year-old girl who's like full grown? You're like full grown at 15. Mm-hmm. Who's resisting.
Yeah.
Or is either resisting or is dead weight through a basement window? Mm-hmm. Why? You got doors. Go through a door. Yeah. Like,
the window was 14 inches wide also.
Okay.
That was just a little detail.
I just think, like, you should just Occam's razor this. The easiest thing is the front door. Mm-hmm. So, theory 1, neighbor didn't see any of this going down because he was doing it.
Right.
And then, just as criminals are sometimes wont to do, he then inserted himself into the investigation when the dad got there.
Yeah. The thing that gets sketchy to me, too, is we only have one set of footprints in the house and outside. Mm-hmm. But there's supposedly 2 men carrying her to the vehicle, but then there's only 3 men in the vehicle, but somebody else was already driving the vehicle. So where did the second person go who was carrying her?
Remember, 2 people wore the shoes.
Oh my god. What if they just both were wearing one of them?
Yeah. This will throw them off. Man, this guy's got a wide stance. My second theory is that one or more criminals parked their car where the car is believed to have been parked. Came in and was casing the neighborhood to see what they could steal, because we have evidence that they were casing the neighborhood. Got to the Rasmussen house, either saw Evelyn and thought, we're going to steal her, or thought, I'm going to break into this house to steal things. There is a girl here. I will take this girl for either she can identify me reasons, or I want this girl reasons. Then they took her back to the car. I don't think the fact that the car was there means it was organized. It just means that the people who were either peeping in the window or casing the place for robbery drove a car there, obviously.
I do find it interesting, though, because there was evidence of the peeping Tom for a year, but this is the first time anybody saw that car.
Well, this is the first time anybody saw a car. We don't know that's the car. That's the other thing I was going to say, is this guy seeing the 2 men, Mr. X seeing the 2 men. That could have just been 2 men carrying a drunken person.
Yeah, because it was homecoming night.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I don't have the actual scale of, like, the town. Like, I didn't look that in depth. But I feel like if the university or the college is Clarion, in Clarion, where this house was is like where the football field in Clarion is.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like definitely walking distance to the college, but it's kind of a long walk.
Yeah, but I bet you students lived like around there.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because here's my thought. In Clarion, we have a thing, so there's homecoming, but then there's another thing that's also like homecoming, and it is called ALF, the Autumn Leaf Festival. Everybody goes back for ALF. Everybody goes back for homecoming. Everybody goes back for ALF. But I'm thinking specifically ALF because every year they sell shirts and mugs and stuff for ALF that say drink, drank, drunk.
Yeah.
Like, people go back for Alf and just get blitzed.
Yeah.
Like, people go back for Homecoming, they just get blitzed. Like,
right.
It is entirely possible it was just 2 people and a drunk girl, and it has nothing to do with this.
Yep. So, are you ready for my favorite theory?
Yes, aliens. Is it aliens?
It's not aliens.
Ugh.
So, let me preface this with, it is the last theory that I've found in my research.
Okay.
It is not substantiated by any law enforcement. Basically, I feel like I really need to preface this. In the 80s, these 2 witnesses went on a news station anonymously to report this theory, which they said that they had taken to law enforcement, and law enforcement just brushed it off. They were not interested. They did not investigate. They just totally wrote it off from the beginning.
Okay.
This theory was one of these witnesses worked with a farmer on his farm. The farmer always wore this cropped denim jacket and sneakers. And on the day of Evelyn's disappearance, the farmer had said to this witness, he kept going on and on about how excited he was because he was going to go into town after work and, quote, get himself a woman. And he was getting agitated because the work on the farm was taking too long to complete. So he left right from the farm at 6:30 wearing his sneakers and his denim jacket that he always wore. The only, discrepancy is that it's not the car that was described by this Mr. X. But again, if you're going by your theory that it was just a car with a drunk girl, then sure. He drove a Chevy, not a Buick. But the faded mark on the jacket is consistent with farming equipment that was still used in the 50s, that it's like a strap and you lead your horse with it. So the strap goes around your back. So the faded mark is consistent with farm work. And this witness who this farmer told them, I can't wait to go get me a woman, said that the farmer never wore that jacket or those sneakers ever again. And he got rid of that car immediately after. He got a new car.
Did he drive a Whizzer motorbike?
That was the one thing that was not mentioned. He drove a Chevy, and like I said, he got rid of it, and he traded it for, a much smaller vehicle.
That's suspicious.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
That's my favorite theory, but again, these are just 2 randos on the local news.
I have a third theory, and it's that.
It's that?
I mean, now I want to call the police and be like, hi, I have some questions for my podcast. Please answer them.
Yeah, but also this farmer that they're talking about had been dead for 15 years when this newscast happened. So.
But I feel like if that was the case, okay, and they went to the police and they were like, because I feel like they would have to go to the police when they saw the jacket and the sneakers.
Oh, I didn't tell you the jacket and the shoes thing. The police took the jacket and the shoes to 30 different cities to expose 10,000 people to the jacket and shoes.
That's what I mean. You said they were showing them to everyone.
But they cleaned the jacket. They cleaned the blood out of the jacket. So that's why when you were asking if they preserved any of the evidence, I'm like, I don't know. They wouldn't
do that today. They do dumb stuff today, but they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, they were like, oh, we're going to show this evidence. Got to wash it first.
But, so, these people who work with this farmer would have seen the jacket and sneakers and been like, oh, those are his jacket and sneakers, and been like, this is the guy. And then they would have had to look into it. That was the whole point of the showing of the jacket and sneakers.
Yeah.
Do we know where the farm was?
No.
Was it in Coon Valley? Or somewhere nearby?
I don't know, because where I found this article, I'll have to pull it up again. So in my reading, I found a Reddit post, and it was commented in the Reddit post, this video of the news article. Let me see if I can find it again. Go ahead and say what you were gonna say while
I was just
look.
thinking if the farm was somewhere near, because it looks like if you were going to go into town, maybe you lived in Shelby or Pleasant Valley or Greenfield or whatever, which is nearby, or Coon Valley, which would make sense of like, I'm going to dump the stuff like near close, not like super far away. So if they were out there somewhere, they were going into town.
Right.
So into La Crosse.
Right. Here we go. Here, I'm going to send it to you so you can watch it. It's a 5-minute video.
I have now finished this 5-minute interview, this 5-minute news spot. Mm-hmm. They didn't go to the police with any of this, and they didn't go to the police even in like 1973. They went to the district attorney. It was like way later. Yeah. They went to the district attorney. So why not go to the police? Like, I don't know. And like I said, I can't imagine that they wouldn't look into that. And if it were, like, super credible, that they wouldn't, like, especially now, I don't know, exhume his body, exhume her body, try to do... I mean, they cleaned the stupid
Well, they don't have her body.
Oh, that's right.
They never found her.
That's right. She might be on that farm.
She could be. And that was one of the things that they did was, like, they went to... This is actually interesting. I forgot about this. The police went to the surrounding farms. Now, I don't know how far they went, but they went to the surrounding farms to investigate and had farmers, like... Well, they had the farmers check their own land for any newly turned ground. And they also went so far as to dig up fresh graves to make sure that nobody like tried to sneak her into an existing fresh grave. But yeah, they did ask the farmers to check, but they had the farmers check their own land. They didn't
treat them like suspects.
Right, exactly. So if it was him and he did bury her on his land, he was the only one to check. So.
See, I like this theory, but I have my issues with it just because why not come forth sooner? Yeah. The news interview said they thought nothing of it until 2 weeks later when they found the coat near where they lived.
Right.
Like, why not then be like, hey.
Yeah, I don't know why they would have gone to the district attorney and not the police. I really don't.
20 years later.
Yeah.
I don't get that, but.
I don't know either. Like, and I mean, it very well could just be a case of them wanting 15 minutes of fame on the news and
could be
like another fake report. Like, who knows?
But it also could have been this farmer going to town and peeking in all these windows to see if any woman was home alone.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, they didn't even go to the news until the guy was dead.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah. It's my favorite theory, but that doesn't mean it's the most credible necessarily.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. I feel the same. I think it's either one of my theories or that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it was the dad. I don't think it was the other babysitter's dad. I don't know. I don't know that it was ever intended to be a robbery first. That's not to say that I don't think it was a crime of opportunity, but I don't know that it was necessarily a robbery that turned into something else. With this, even in intention only.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I mean, if it wasn't a robbery that turned into a crime of opportunity, it was somebody peeking in windows trying to see if there was a woman home alone. Right. I don't think it was somebody who knew she was there.
No, who knew who she was even.
Exactly. No. I think we're on the same page.
Obviously. I mean, we've got this locked and loaded.
Detective Liz and Han are on the case.
consider it solved. Yeah, but they
Another one in the
never
books.
they never figured it out. They never found a body. They never got any closer to solving this one.
I wonder if it's still open technically.
I think it is. What's the one? I put a link to the Charlie Project.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I know about them.
Yeah, so I'm not super familiar with the Charlie Project, but I don't know if that means they ever even technically declared her dead.
Yeah, she would just technically be missing still.
Yeah, that was my guess. Mm-hmm. So, which she would be like in her 80s now.
Thora Chamberlain is also in the Charlie Project.
Yeah, so she has if it's one of the links in it's one of my sources. So there's a really 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 thorough long description of the events on her Charlie Project page. Okay. So it's not like super long, but it's something if you want to read something about it. The Charlie Project is one of the places that lists Ed Gaines as a suspect though, and I'm like, meh. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got an Ed Gein in the hand, an Ed Gein in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Right.
I guess that's not what that saying means.
That's okay. But this is like a big case for, like, it's a very popular unsolved case. Mm-hmm. So there's like a lot of blogs about it, a lot of like Reddit posts about it, just a lot of information because a lot of people are intrigued by it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is very intriguing. There's a lot of questions.
Oh yeah. I just like her poor mother.
I agree.
Who forced her to babysit when she didn't want to,
and then had a bad feeling and just was like, "Oh, bad feeling."
Yeah.
I do like that we've set this precedent now where you can handle the unsolved ones.
Okay.
I like this.
Yeah, that works for me.
I've never felt drawn to doing one, and now I never have to.
There you go. Well, because at first I was like, I don't know if I should stay away from them because it's like, should my mysteries be not crimes?
No, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I like it though. I like speculating.
Yeah, I like coming up with theories.
Yeah.
Let us now discuss what we are reading and what we are recommending.
Why don't you go first if you have something?
I don't know if I talked about this already on the show. I am reading a book. You all know I like to listen and read. So I am listening to a book right now by Rin Chapiko. Did I already say about this?
I don't think so. What's the title?
Okay. It's called The Bone Witch.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, maybe, yay.
Well, hold on. Maybe you
look back in your notes. Did I discuss this?
I don't have it on my notes for last week. So.
Okay. So Rin is R-I-N. And then their last name is Chupeko, spelled C-H-U-P-E-C-O.
Okay.
It is the first in a series. It is YA fantasy. It is about a girl who lives in it. I sort of did that thing at the beginning of the book where it's telling me all the things and I'm just like, I don't know what any of this means. Right. So it's one of those where like it's in a different place. Mm-hmm. It's in like, it's got this whole different system of things, but there's magic, basically. There's magic, and some people are witches and some people aren't. And her sisters are all witches. There's like a forest witch. I don't remember what the other one is, like a water witch or something. Mm-hmm. And she, after her brother is killed in the war, she accidentally raises him from the dead. And it turns out she is what is called a dark Asha, or colloquially and kind of derogatorily, a bone witch. Mm-hmm. So it's all about her. It's sort of Interview with a Vampire-ish, where like one chapter is the future, where it's this this bard is like interviewing a 17-year-old her.
Yeah.
And then it'll cut back to 13-year-old her and her apprenticeship becoming a bone witch.
Okay.
I'm almost done with it. It is very good. If you like fantasy, if you like witchy things, it's worth a listen or a read.
It sounds good.
Do you have a recommendation?
I do. I'm not reading anything right now, but I want to recommend The Librarian of Auschwitz. Which I read last year, I think. I gave myself a challenge because, like, I used to read so much, and then I stopped because college. I never picked it back up again. So last year, 2019, I did, like, a reading challenge for my year, and this was one of the things that I read. So it's The Librarian of Auschwitz. It is written by Antonio G. Iturbe. And it's technically fiction, but it is based on the true story of Dita Crosse, who was a person, a child, a teenager in the concentration camps. And it is so good. It is such a good book. So it follows her experience in the camps as, quote, the librarian of the camp, which was a really, really risky job because the camp that she was in was a camp that outwardly presented as like a family camp. So when like organizations would come in to like check and see if the camps were treating people right, this is the camp that they would go to. So they were generally treated somewhat better than the other concentration camps. So they did have like a small school and they had classes, but books were still banned. So one of the teachers had a small collection of books that were contraband, and her job was keeping the books, mending the books, transporting the books between teachers, and not getting caught.
Wow.
And it's so good. Like I said, it's based on a true story. And she and her husband were both in this camp. He appears in this book as well. But this is technically fiction. Like, some things are embellished and everything. But there are other books about them in particular that are not necessarily fiction. So it's amazing. I highly recommend it.
I was going to say, because the two of us have very specific tastes, that would be another one for the bingo card, is like Liz suggests an Holocaust book, Hannah suggests a witch book.
I know, right? I still have The Witches of New York sitting on my end table. I want to see if I can find it in audio, because know I'll read it faster if I can find the audio.
It's so good.
I know.
I can smell dinner is started. So Elizabeth,
yes,
where can the people find us?
You can find us. We are Briefcase Crimes across all social media platforms, including Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. You can listen to full episodes anywhere that you listen to podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If you would like to support us monetarily, you can buy us a coffee at coffee. That's ko-fi.com/briefcasecrimes. Or you can purchase any of our book recommendations or books we want to read or other books or any book, quite frankly, using our bookshop.org affiliate link. They support local bookstores by donating 75% of profits to them, and they support us through the affiliate link as well by giving us 10% of the profits. That link, as well as all of the others, are in our link tree, which can be found in the description of this episode or in our bio on any of those social media platforms.
Excellent work, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
A plus police work. And with that, would you like to wrap this up?
Yes. Thank you guys so much for listening.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Excuse me.